And welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with The Big Question, where tonight we're discussing the Security Laws Amendment Bill. And what we've been asking is whether you think it's a necessary measure to combat terror or whether you think it's draconian. In studio, I'm joined by Honorable Abdikadir Aden, Balambala MP. And then we have Honorable Samuel Gishegi Kipipiri, Member of Parliament. Thank you both so much for joining us tonight. Before we delve into the discussion, here's a look at some of the feedback from some of you who've been tweeting us and texting us, and we'll be able to read some of that as well later on in the show. Do we have that right now? See if we can bring up those tweets. Okay, I think there's a bit of an issue. Right, there's a bit of an issue there. We'll try and bring up those tweets a little bit later. And maybe, Honorable Kadir Aden, I can sort of pose this to you. Many people terming it as draconian and retrogressive. Do you agree?
Yes.
Why so?
Let me say, first of all, as I begin, that admittedly, security is itself one of the fundamental rights. And it is of such a nature that without it, then the other basic rights cannot be enjoyed. So for that reason, I want to start and say that it is absolutely necessary for the government to do whatever that is required to ensure that the security is at all times maintained. But having said that, we need to be very careful with what is happening under these amendment laws, because I do not think this country lacks laws per se to deal with insecurity. It is lack of proper functioning of the systems that we have in place, the security systems that we have in place, that unfortunately is the main cause of the things that we're seeing. So what we're seeing here is, we are seeing, as we will shortly probably take a deep dive on them, mutilation of the Bill of Rights, left, center, and right. And that is why I say it is draconian and retrogressive.
We'll get into some of the principal concerns that you have, but first, let's hear from you, your thoughts on or what people are saying about it being retrogressive and draconian.
Thank you, Janet. There's no doubt that the Kenyans must be ready to pay a price to get back security in this country. Looking at the Constitution, there are quite a number of rights there. But if you go to Article 24, it is very clear that only 4 rights are actually absolute. And the makers of the Constitution were very, very clear in their mind on that issue. And the rights that are absolute are freedom from slavery, torture, the right to fair trial, and the right of habeas corpus. That is an application to be produced in court. All the other rights, the Constitution envisages a situation where they can be limited for the public good. And what is happening here is that, yes, some rights, say of movement, some rights or say of communication are being intruded on just a bit. But the Constitution has permitted that, and I can tell you that the majority of Kenyans have no problem with that, as long as the security is retained. Janet, remember that without security, there's no society, there's no government. And if a government actually fails in providing security, then there's no need of that government. There's no civilization. So we, as much as our friends on the other side of a code have issues with several provisions, the bill is in Parliament. Where are the amendments that they are proposing?
Okay, before I come back to you, Honorable Aden, I want to ask you, you don't think that in any way they're an infringement to human rights? You don't think so in any way?
Let me say this. The way this bill was brought, there are a few issues that even the Jubilee side found disagreeable. And there's a raft of amendments that we are going to that have already been proposed. In fact, I would have expected most of the members of Parliament, especially from COD, to have made presentations on the amendments. So, yes, we agree. Looking at this issue of public gatherings, obviously we are making an amendment to that. There's issues related to trials, fair trial, and we are making amendments to that. So yes, there are a few issues that we are going to change. Yes.
You agree to that. What is your response to that? And even as you respond to him, and before again we delve deeper, is COD in a sense indifferent, so to say, regarding ways in which terror and insecurity can be tackled, what would some of your proposals be? So first, I'd want you to respond to what he said and then answer that question as well.
I think I'll just go straight to your question. In the process, I will answer my colleague. CORD is very concerned about the security situation, and time and again we've given our position, urging the government to ensure that everything is put into place to arrest the insecurity that we have right now. It is not acceptable. Let me say, the issue of discussion tonight is on this amendment bill. This amendment bill, in my view, has a number of key issues that it touches on. Let me go to the first one, which is on clause number 5. The issue of freedom of assembly, freedom of demonstration, picketing and presentation of petitions and all this. Now, we are talking about matters of security. And here we are talking about limiting of rights with regards to democratic demonstrations, for example, and issues that have nothing at all to do with security. At the same time, on that particular while on that particular note, again, this bill brings something interesting. If we are organizers of a peaceful demonstration ourselves, should anything happen, should opponents or other people or thugs come and vandalize things in the process of our otherwise peaceful demonstrations, we are liable for that particular issues, as it says here. In other words, there is a shift of the criminal responsibility from the people who will do it to the peaceful organizers of that particular. The police has a mandate to ensure and safeguard security, not us as the organizers of that. These are some of the issues, probably as my point number 1 on the issues.
But just to follow up on that, there could be an argument in that sense that you could still be harboring hooligans within those settings, which could again infringe on the rights of ordinary citizens. So how would you respond to that?
Let me say that every demonstration has a purpose, or any public demonstration is a manifestation of a freedom to express oneself. It is not only done by politicians, it is done by the teachers' union, it is done by every other person, the nurses, the doctors. Now, unfortunately, in Kenya, what we have seen before is we have seen situation whereby hooligans who had nothing to do with otherwise a peaceful function, and this is not only in CORD or on the other side, any other political rally or event that happened in the past. Luckily, lately, we've been improving a lot in terms of as Kenyans. But I want to say that hooliganism and hiding of hooligans to do a demonstration is not allowed at all. So the demonstration which is being limited here, the right which is being limited here, is the right to free demonstration. I want to come to what my colleague had said earlier. On Article 24, and if you can pick it, we can read it. Article 24 is very, very clear and emphasizes the word, the emphasis is on any issue that needs to be done should not infringe on freedoms. The basis or the interaction between security and the freedoms we enjoy is best anchored on Article 238 of our Constitution, which says that in pursuit of its security strategy, the government should not limit in any way the rule of law, democracy, freedoms, and unfortunately this is what this bill does.
Honorable Gishiga, what's your response to that?
On this issue that he started with on public meetings and processions, I want to repeat that we have already proposed certain amendments. So there's no question that... and then
what amendments are those?
The amendment is, that is being proposed is that the cabinet secretary can indicate areas where such processions, such a demonstration cannot be held, not indicate where they should be held, which was the intention to begin with. So clearly, it's just avoid this this situation, not hold your gathering in Uhuru Park or anything like that. So people are actually free to hold their meetings, their gatherings, but be careful. There are some areas that you should not go and hold meetings.
Supposing the cabinet secretary then says that you can't demonstrate around places where you want to take your issues, such as Harambee Avenue in Parliament, what happens then?
The proposal that is coming is they are going to create certain regulations, and those regulations are going to be brought to Parliament. So Parliament is going to be indicating which are these areas that probably they should not, maybe restricted areas. I don't see any other area being because if they are presenting a petition, they have to come to Parliament. They have to go to Harambee House. So clearly, this matter is going to the authority, the power to create those rules must be approved by Parliament. Okay. So we should not worry about that issue at all. Mm. Yes.
What about, and I know you'll respond to this in just a moment. Let's go to another principal concern perhaps that you have of, for instance, the tapping of phones and other powers that the NIS has. That is seen as an infringement on privacy of ordinary citizens, something that a lot of people are crying foul over. How are you going to address that?
Okay. What the proposals that are in this particular bill, yes, NIS is going to tap. What we have done is we have restricted the right or the authority of NIS to tap to issues to deal with terrorism alone. Mm-hmm. And if NIS or any other police authority taps or gets taps your communication, that information cannot be used in court other than for purposes of dealing with cases under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. That is what is coming. Even
as you proceed with that, how then will they gauge? It may seem like an obvious question, but where is that line drawn between someone's privacy and them being suspected to be connected to terrorist activities? Where does one draw the line?
The law that is coming is going to be very, very clear that it's only in cases where NIS is investigating issues of terrorism, it's permitted to tap the communication. So there's no doubt about that issue. And Janet, it is important that you remember almost a year ago, our colleagues from CORD were very clear. They wanted discussions, a dialogue to deal with, to talk about security. But the question that we as Jubilee are asking, where are these proposals that they were talking about a year ago? Not a single proposal on amendment of the current laws has seen light of day in Parliament. So the Jubilee, the executive have come with theirs. They are brought to Parliament. Parliament has authority to amend all this. In fact, we can throw out the entire bill and bring our own proposals. We are waiting for those proposals from CORD. Kenyans are crying to be given security. And there are very, very good provisions that are in this bill. But unfortunately, and even in this particular debate, the big question, we are just focusing on the negatives. Yet there are so many good provisions that are in this bill.
Which we'll come to in just a moment. Your response regarding the...
Yes, a very, very quick one. The first one on the issue of the demonstrations and where a place to be gazetted and this and that. The first, one of the major issues with that is the fact that this is now moving to the hands of the executive to determine whether Kenyans will demonstrate, where will they demonstrate, what time will they demonstrate. All these issues have now been moved away from the police service, which is supposed to be an independent service, to now the hands of the executive. Honorable Gishige and I will be the first victims. When we go to our constituencies, we want to hold those get-togethers for our people. And now here we have to look for, and if we are not very careful, even the chiefs of villages will arrest us for holding or meeting people in places that otherwise was not gazetted. So I just want to move away from that, saying that indeed it is wrong to put it in the hands of the executive. Keep it in the hands of the police. Let's give the notice of what we want to do and we do it. Coming to the NIS, I think the NIS Act is probably one of the biggest problems in this bill. Biggest because it gives, if you read that particular powers given to the NIS, ability to do literally, in the words of this, not my own, anything and everything that they deem is right. Now, when you give an individual that power, considering the fact that this individual was not given a court order to do that, they was just given by the Director General of NIS, will tell them, okay, you go and do what is called a covert operation. This covert operation, especially those of us who live in northern Kenya, who have been victims of past heavy-handedness of governments, really do understand what it can be subjected to abuse. And when you tell an individual, go and do everything and anything, go and remove anything from a property of a house, of a person, go and dig into their communications, and that word "do everything" is an issue that we have, and I think that, as a matter of fact, indeed must be removed. The problem I have with that is that their powers are not oversighted on, they are not under IPOA, they are not under anything. they are not responsible because they have not obtained any court order. And for that reason, really, we find ourselves as Kenyans really worried about that particular powers given to the NIS.
Infringing on one's privacy.
Infringing on privacy, and also the threat that these particular provisions can be subject to abuse. And I'm sure my friend will understand
to any
this.
interpretation.
Janet, on that particular issue, I want to repeat and say that it is just in relation to terrorism. That is number one. Number two, if remember that because he's forgetting, the NIS officers are now being permitted to arrest suspects and take them to court. And even this issue of tapping is not permanent. They are only supposed to do it for a certain period. And you cannot say that they are not supposed to get authority from any other person. Actually, they are supposed to get that from the National Security Council. And these are the people who are supposed to authorize certain officers of NIS to carry out this communication intercepts. And once that information is received, it is not supposed to be used under this act for any other purpose other than prosecuting people in court.
Okay. I know a lot of this we can dwell on it for a while. I'll ask you in just a few moments about what's expected on Thursday. But on the side of CORD, any concrete proposals that you have that can combat terrorism and also protect the rights of Kenyans? He's saying none at all. He's saying that they've been waiting.
Let me say that when it comes to the form of government, it is, first of all, CORD has put a lot of proposals before in terms of how security can best be managed. Eradicate corruption from the police force. Our Kenyan police force is gauged time and again. Local reports, international reports produce, they consistently have for very many years shown that the police force is rotten with corruption. Remove that. Get better coordination between the agencies of the government, between the intelligence gathering, between the police, between the military. Get the structures within this right under the existing laws, including our own constitution. Those are some of the provisions that we give, and we will be proposing amendments into this particular bill tomorrow. But having said that, let me tell you, it is not the responsibility of the opposition to make policies for the government. In fact, ours is to ensure that every policy that the government wants to do and implement is checked on, scrutinized, and the reality of issues or any hidden agendas that could harm Kenyans tomorrow is laid bare. That we are doing very ably as the opposition.
Just before I let you answer, and please hold on to that thought, some may still accuse you of playing politics. What are the 1, 2, 3 proposals? I know you've mentioned, but
yes,
so that it's not seen, specifics, that it's not seen as if you're playing politics.
Let me say, Janet, this. It is not about politics. Our security, as I had started with when I was opening, is of paramount importance to all of us as Kenyans. There cannot be in any way playing politics with this. But when we say that be very careful not to mutilate our constitution, not to take fundamental rights away from Kenyans, not to shut the window on the freedom of media that Kenyans enjoy. Remember the journey that Kenyans have come along in order to get this piece of laws that we have today. Many blood has been shed. There was struggles. When you hear, and I read with a lot of passion the other day, when I see somebody like Koigi Wamwere standing up to say that this is a draconian law, really, something must be wrong about this, because that is a man who's suffering. We all know of how much suffering he has been through for the betterment of this country. We have this constitution, we have superior laws. We must protect the freedoms of and democracy that is guaranteed under this.
Janet, you have just asked my colleague what CORD will be proposing to bring. He has indicated that we need to change the structure of the police, the security structure in the country. We need to eradicate corruption. Leading this bill, if a police officer or any other public officer is found to have aided in a person coming to this country to carry out a terrorist act or even a criminal, if an officer has actually given an identity card or a passport to a person who's not even a Kenyan, he is going to go to jail for 20 years under this act. So this act is actually dealing with the police and corruption. That is number one. Number two, the issues of the structure. I agree completely with my colleague that we have a problem. And that is why we are saying let us change this issue. Let us put the IG under the president, such that he can actually be fired. He can be hired and fired by the president. Number two, we are changing the structure such that at the county level, this fight between the administration police and the regular police is eradicated by putting the two under one command. Because previously they were actually not doing that. So indeed, that what he is proposing is what this bill is saying. But you can see clearly what CORD is doing is they have gotten an opportunity to just make a lot of noise over just about 4 problem areas, issues which we're actually dealing with. Even that issue of the media, where the media had been sort of targeted for a higher fine because of publishing gory and obscene information.
Yes, which again, I'm sure you'll argue can be seen as very broad and not specific as to what gory
is being amended. And we are removing the issue of the media here.
Okay.
We are saying any person in this country who publishes pictures of dead bodies or people who are injured
will be held accountable.
Accountable.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I do want to get your closing comments. For you, Honorable Gishigi,
yes.
On Thursday, what do we expect? Speculation that there might be tyranny of numbers to try and push for this bill to be passed?
We are going to have tyranny of numbers to create amendments to ensure that the rights of Kenyans are not tampered with under this particular bill, but also to make sure that the executive have the necessary powers to provide security to this country. And I am assuring Kenyans that this bill is not about removing any rights of individuals in dealing with human rights. What we are doing is dealing with security. Let our colleagues come up with proposals on amendment, on derisions, not just make noise for the sake of it. And finally, Janet, I was very sad today because we have spent the whole day in Parliament coming up with amendments so that we can take care of the concerns of the people who have come to before the committees. And we have received memoranda from about over 20 organizations. We were dealing with that. And the court people were just popping in and popping out and rushing back to Ufungamano instead of coming to deal with the real issues. And the security of this country is not going to be dealt with at Ufungamano or any other public rally. It is going to be dealt with by laws presented to Parliament.
All right, Honorable Gishigi, thank you so much for those closing remarks. Briefly, your response to what he said and also whether or not a protest or demonstration is necessary on Thursday.
Let me say that, first of all, I'll start with Ufungamano. Let my colleague make no mistake. I know he's one of some of the fine brains we have in the House. Ufungamano, when things were bad for Kenyans, the first step, the journey to this constitution started at Ufungamano. Be very worried when you see an initiative starting from Ufungamano.
What do you mean by
real.
that?
We are going back to ensure that we protect this constitution as it is. That's just on the Ufungamano. On a light note to my colleague. Now, the issue, there are many issues in this bill, which we unfortunately, because I can see we don't have much time. He talked about the IG being hired and fired. This was the case before, but Kenyans went for a referendum and voted that they did not want that. They wanted an independent police service commission to manage those issues. Why? Because they wanted the person who is in command of the police to be an impartial person, not answerable to the executive, but to provide Kenyan services. And for that reason, even as you bring us back this is why we're saying this bill is taking us back to the old days. The other issue that you talked about creating of penalties against police officers. I wish I had the time to elaborate more on this. You say it is so unconstitutional because supposing a police officer murders, he commits murder. This bill, according to this bill, he can only be jailed for only such amount of time. While in reality, the sentence could have otherwise been.
The laws are there.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. What we are doing here is we are amending these laws. These are new laws that we are creating. So as I end, I want to say, Janet, it is with a lot of objectivity that we criticize this particular bill. Personally, the issues that I have with this particular bill is that it is giving so much unauthorized power to otherwise systems that we know are not in their perfect form. No oversight at all, and at all times trying to shrink and close the space that Kenyans have enjoyed with regards to freedom
But
of media
Janet,
and
that's
freedom of
unfortunately
expression.
all the time we have.
Janet,
I'll have
Kenya
to
is
give-
at war with the terrorism.
Yeah.
So we must actually deal with this issue in a different way.
I think we have enough laws to deal with.
No, we
All
don't.
right. This is certainly something
Already.
that we'll continue to delve into. You know, it wouldn't be possible with the short amount of time we have. But thank you both so much for your views, and we'll look out for what happens on Thursday. Thank you both so much.
Thank you very much.
We're back after this short break with your business news.
Mayanema vataro makoa, higeria.